Hey guys, I'm back here again to do another character review video. Um, this time my friend and I are doing reviews of Cinderella from, of course, Cinderella, and Snow White from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. My friend did his Cinderella review a couple days ago, and I'm here today to do my Snow White review. Before I get started, something that I'd like to mention about Snow White is, she is a personal favorite character of mine. She's my favorite Disney princess, and my second favorite animated heroine, right after Minnie and Webby, who tie for my first. I was I was a bit surprised at the number of complaints that I've found about her after I wrote them all down. She's got the longest list of complaints of any character that I've done so far. Anyway, let's get started. She's sexist. She waits around for a prince to show up, rather than doing anything herself. She's stupid. She runs away with a guy she doesn't know. She takes the poisoned apple from the obviously evil old woman after being warned by the dwarfs. She trespasses and breaks and enters in the dwarf's house. She should have left her home a long time ago rather than continuing to be a servant to the evil queen. She's passive. She's bossy. She's too cheerful. She's too girly. She's a Mary Sue. She's a bad role model, and her voice is annoying. Yeah, that's a long list. And yeah, I know a lot of them clash with each other, and a lot of them kind of go together. But I have heard all of them from various different people on various different sites, on sites like FanPop and other Disney sites. Anyway, starting with she's sexist. Okay. While I can kind of understand someone saying that a character is sexist if she was supposed to be, that a character like Snow White is sexist if she was supposed to be in a modern-day story, you've got to take into consideration the time period that she's in. Back then, back then, women, and especially young teenage girls, I think she's supposed to be like 13 or 14, back then, women, and especially young teenage girls, really had few to no rights. And their status was really decided by their father or the guy that they married, their husband. So, and yeah, I'm well aware that she's a princess by birth, but since her father has died and she's become a servant girl, her princess status is pretty much gone. I'll explain a lot more of this in later complaints, because, like I said, a lot of these kind of go together, but I mean, if now that her father is dead and she's been forced to become a servant girl, she really wouldn't have any way of proving to anyone that she is a princess. If she were to run away from home in her servant girl dress and claim I'm the Princess Snow White. For all they know, she's some kind of crazy girl who wants to be the princess, and thinks she is. So you have to take into consideration the time period that the movie was made in and that the story is supposed to take place in. Yeah, I can understand people calling a character who behaves like Snow White sexist if it's supposed to be in a modern day story, but I'd blame that more on the time period than Snow White herself. And like I said, I'll explain a bit more of that in other complaints. She waits around for a prince to show up rather than doing anything herself. Again, it's the time period. Back then, women, and especially a girl her age, really had no rights. If she tried to do anything herself, like leave the castle, the best that she could probably do is find a servant job with someone else, or even worse, a prostitute job. I mean, it's not like she could it's not like she could run away from home and start her own business or something. She had no money in her name. So, I mean, it's not like she could run away from home and start her own bakery or butcher shop or something like that. And like I just mentioned, even though she is technically the princess, she really didn't have a way of proving it now that she's been forced to become a servant. Like, sort of like with Cinderella. While she was technically the daughter of a nobleman, once her father passed away and she was forced to become a servant girl, she didn't have any way of proving that she was the descendant of a nobleman. And like I just mentioned, if she did run away from home and try to claim that she was a princess, people would likely think that she was some sort of crazy girl that for some reason thought she was a princess. So, again, you have to take into consideration the time period of that the story was supposed to take place in. And really blame that problem more on the time than on Snow White. And I think that a lot of people that I've heard complaints from about various characters fail to take into consideration the time period. Like with Cinderella, like my friend mentioned, and Jane from Peter Pan too. A lot of people don't take into consideration the time period of their story. Okay. She's stupid. I'd say more young and ignorant. Um, I mean, like I mentioned before, she's supposed to be 13 or 14, I think. And she spent her whole life growing up in the palace. Yeah, she was a servant girl for a lot of that time, but she really had never been outside the palace at all. So she's very unaware of what the outside world is like and what goes on out there. And yeah, I mean, she does make some arguably stupid decisions, like running away with a guy she doesn't know, uh, taking the poisoned apple after the dwarfs warned her about it, and uh, breaking and entering and trespassing, but making bad decisions, making arguably stupid decisions does not make a stupid character. As I've mentioned many times in my reviews of Ariel and Scamp, uh, Jack Frost, and as I've mentioned in my reviews of Webby, of Ariel, of Scamp, Melody, and Jane, there's a difference between being young and ignorant and being stupid. I don't know why so many people think that a young character who is ignorant of the world around them is automatically stupid, but there's a big difference between being young and ignorant and being stupid. And there's also a big difference between making some arguably stupid decisions and actually being stupid. There are plenty of smart characters that make some bad decisions, but they're still smart characters. She runs away with a guy she doesn't know. It's Disney and it's a fairy tale. So to me that sounds more like you've got a problem with Disney and fairy tales than Snow White. I mean, Cinderella did it, Ariel did it, Aurora did it, and like I mentioned before, I think the only Disney movie where they at all mention that it's a stupid thing to do is in Frozen, where it turns out that Hans is actually wants to marry Anna for the title of king. So, yeah, I mean, while marrying somebody that you don't know is definitely a stupid thing to do in real life, what do you expect from a Disney fairy tale? I mean, what did you expect them to do? Have them dating for over a year before they got married? Because again, to me that sounds like you've got a problem with Disney fairy tales more than just Snow White, and you might as well hate all of them if you don't like the idea of characters, if you can't stand the idea of characters marrying people they don't know. Because, I mean, even in the ones like, Beauty and the Beast, where they don't, just, where they don't just get married within a few days of knowing each other, it's still a pretty short period of time. Um, it's still a pretty short period of time to be dating. I mean, maybe a couple of months at tops. Um, and she takes the apple from the obviously evil old woman after the dwarfs warned her not to. Okay, I can kind of understand that. I mean, yeah, she knew that the evil queen was out to kill her and everything, but uh, you also have to take into consideration, you have to take a lot of things into consideration. While it probably wasn't the brightest move to take the poison apple, to take the apple when she knew that the evil queen was out to kill her, you have to remember that, like, when the old lady shows up, she is very wary of her and doesn't trust her immediately. And then after that, when the birds attack the old woman, she the old woman claims to be having a heart attack. I mean, if there was an old lady outside your house having a heart attack, or at least claiming to, how would you react to that? I mean, would you invite her in, and try to get her comfortable, or would you just leave her outside, and hope that nothing happened? Even if there was a possibility that she might die on your watch. Because I definitely couldn't do that. And I think that Snow White definitely has too good a heart to let an old woman die out in the yard. So yeah, I mean, while taking the apple was arguably a pretty bad decision, while actually taking the apple was arguably a pretty bad decision, you also need to remember that she was very wary of her at first, and then then she was afraid that that the old lady might be dying out there. And then after the old lady thanked her for her kindness, that I think that's what, and offered her the magic wishing apple. I think that's what made Snow White believe that what made Snow White believe that she was dealing with a nice old lady, and not a creepy one that she thought she was dealing with at first. She trespasses and breaks and enters into the dwarf's house. Again, while that may not have been the wisest decision to go into the house of someone that you don't know, there are several factors you have to take into consideration. One is, she had just been kicked out of her own home, and she knew that there was somebody out there trying to kill her, so she had to find some place to stay. She had to. And her animal friends showed her this, and yeah, even though they're not talking animal friends, they indicated that this would be a fine place to stay. And also, she didn't really know of any place else to stay. I mean, where else was she gonna stay? A cave out in the forest? And you also have to take into consideration what she thought she was dealing with when she first came in. When she first saw the dwarf's small furniture, she thought that she was dealing with a home of orphan children. And she thought that by staying there, she could be sort of a mother figure to them, and help raise them and keep their home clean and everything. So she really had no idea that she was coming into the home of a bunch of elderly men. I mean, if you watch the scene where she first wakes up and sees them, she's like, "Oh, why, you're little men." Very surprised to see that she's actually dealing with adult men there. So, those are, again, while it probably wasn't the smartest decision, you have to take into consideration that she had to find some place to stay pretty quickly, because she had just been kicked out of her home and knew somebody was out there to kill her. So it's not like, she could spend time looking for a better place to stay, looking for the best place to stay. And you also have to take into consideration that she had no idea that she was coming into the home of a bunch of adult men. I mean, it's not like she broke into a huge mansion and made herself comfortable just because it was better than the home she was in before or something like that. And another thing that I forgot to mention is the dwarfs left their door unlocked, so it's not like she kicked down the door to get in or something like that. So yeah, I mean, well, I can kind of see that it's... I do think that there are things that people fail to think about when they say that she trespasses and breaks and enters and that sort of thing. 'Cause it's not what I usually think of when I think of somebody trespassing and breaking and entering. She should have left her home a long time ago and quit being a servant girl to the evil queen. Well, that goes back to the thing I was talking about earlier about the time period. Again, I think that you have a problem with the time period more than you do Snow White. Like I mentioned, no woman, and especially no young teenage girl, had really any rights back then. And if she had tried to leave her home, the best she could have done is found a job as a servant with somebody else, or again a prostitute. And the fact that she was technically a princess didn't really matter that much now that she had been demoted to servant girl and her dad, the king, was dead. And excuse me. And it wasn't at all like it was today, where, you know, women can go out and get a job anywhere or start their own business just like a guy can. So, again, I blame that on the time period more than I do Snow White, and I think that, and again, I think that a lot of people don't take into consideration the time period. She's passive. Somewhat. She is passive to an extent. I mean, she's not as vocal about her about standing up for herself as a lot of the modern day princesses like Jasmine or Ariel or even Belle is. But that doesn't necessarily make her a bad character. But she does stand up for herself. I mean, like when the um when the dwarfs first meet her, and Grumpy doesn't want her there and threatens to kick her out. She does say, uh, "Please don't send me away. If you do, she'll kill me." You know, she definitely stands up for her rights, but she does it in a very polite way. Um, and I mean, a lot of the early Disney princesses were like that. I mean, uh, Snow White, of course, Cinderella, Aurora, they were all like that. So, to me, that sounds more like you've got a problem with the early princesses than just Snow White. I mean, when you look at Cinderella, like my friend mentioned, she also stands up for her rights when when the when Lady Tremaine and her stepsisters don't want her to go to the ball, and she says, "Why not? After all, I'm still a member of the family, and it says by royal command every eligible maiden should attend." So yeah, in a way, Snow White is a lot like that. And then here comes the one that clashes with that. She's bossy. Um, I mean, I suppose she's arguably a bit bossy when she tells the dwarfs that they need to wash their hands or they won't get a bite to eat or something and like that. But uh, I mean, she's not rude to them or anything. Uh, I mean, to me, there are characters that are a lot bossier than that, like Daisy Duck, when she's constantly pecking Donald and that sort of thing. Like in Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, uh, where she's trying to get ready for the skating thing and is yelling at Donald uh, to get her stuff ready. I mean, yeah, I suppose that Snow White is arguably a bit bossy when she tells the dwarfs that they need to wash their hands, but having a bossy moment like that, having a moment that's a bit bossy like that, I wouldn't really call her a bossy character, because like I said, there are characters like Daisy Duck or Miss Piggy or characters like that are way bossier than she is. So, if you're gonna call Snow White bossy, then, to me that's just nitpicky. Uh, she's too cheerful. Um, yeah, I can kind of understand that. Admittedly, when I was younger, I found her to be too cheerful, and I didn't care for her much. But, the, she does have her sad moments, like, when she when she runs through the forest, and is scared of all of the trees, then uh, then ends up crying about it. I mean, she does have her sad moments, but again, I mean, a lot of the early Disney characters, like uh, Cinderella, and even Aurora, that we're all very cheerful most of the time. Always look on the bright side of things. So again, that sounds more like you've got a problem with a lot of the early Disney characters than just Snow White. Um, I mean, yeah, if, like I said, I personally used to think that she was a bit too cheerful myself, so I can see it as a reason not to be a big fan of hers, but I, I don't see it as a reason to despise her as a character. For me personally, her cheerfulness is now one of the things that I like about her. Um, and and I sorry, I know I stammer. And I think that their intent was to make her sort of a role model that always looked on the bright side of things. Anyway, she's too girly. Again, I understand that there's only so much girliness that somebody can take. Um, so, while I can understand that she might be a little too girly for some people's taste, I don't really see her being... I don't really see her girliness as a reason to hate her. I mean, like I've mentioned in various videos, I do consider myself to be somewhat of a tomboy, but there are plenty of girly characters that I still like Minnie, Webby, Snow White. Um, so if you're going to hate a character strictly because they're girly, that's not really a legitimate reason. And to me, that sounds like you have a problem with all things girly more than Snow White's character. She's a Mary Sue. Mm. Again, I think that their intent was to make her more of a role model than a flawed, relatable character, like with Ariel, Jasmine, and that sort of thing. I do think that she does have some minor flaws, like she's a little bit too trusting, like with like with the old lady in the magic wishing apple, and even immediately trusting the dwarfs after she meets them. So I think that she arguably has some minor flaws like that. But I think that their intent with her was to make her more of a role model character than a flawed, relatable character like they do with a lot of their more recent characters. And there are some more recent characters that are still, if not flawless, pretty close to flawless, that I do consider good characters, like Belle from Beauty and the Beast. So, while I suppose I could kind of see that as a complaint, again, that was just more of the style of doing heroes and heroines back then, making them more role models than actual characters that you relate to. And here's another clasher. She's a bad role model. Well, I guess she's not the ideal role model for for little girls today, since she, you know, takes place in a completely different time. I don't really see that she's a bad role model. I mean, if you're talking about like her mistakes, like trusting strangers, breaking and entering, and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't want your child role modeling that, but I don't really see that that she's a bad role model. I don't really see how someone who's, you know, kind and optimistic, caring, and that sort of thing is a bad role model. I mean, I suppose that I suppose someone might argue that she's not a great role model, since she takes place in a time when women had to wait around for guys to marry them and couldn't really do anything for themselves. But again, there are far worse role models for your child to be role modeling after. For your child to model themselves after, like like Tinkerbell from the original Peter Pan movies, who wants to kill women she's jealous of. Scrooge from the original comics, who doesn't give a dang about anything but money. And finally, her voice is annoying. While I can see it as a legitimate complaint about her, I mean, yeah, I used to think that her voice was kind of annoying when I was a kid. I don't see it as a reason to hate a character. I mean, for myself personally, I kind of find Donald Duck's voice to be annoying at times, but yeah, I still like him a lot as a character, even though I find his voice annoying because you can't understand what he's saying half the time. And so, I mean, while I can understand someone not liking her voice, because it is very high-pitched at times, that a bad voice does not equal a bad character. So, if you're gonna hate her, find a more legitimate reason than you dislike her voice. Anyway, that's all I have to say about her complaints. I personally love Snow White. Like I said, she's my favorite Disney princess and my second favorite animated heroine. I understand that she's not a character for everybody, but I personally love her. I think that she's very sweet, caring, kind, and optimistic. Obviously not the most complex character in the world, but still a very interesting character. My friend's Cinderella review will be in the video description below. Bye, and see you next time.